Many researchers and doctors, and broader societies, take it as a given that obesity means ill health. In fact, says Ruth Lewes, who studies the genetics of obesity at the University of Copenhagen, we can be obese but remain healthy. Shearer, Lewes, and other researchers worldwide are examining genes, animal models, and humans to understand how factors such as the distribution of fat in the body and the nature of fat itself can blunt or compound any health impacts of extra weight. Beyond the research lies a knotty practical question: what the science means for people with obesity and the doctors they see. Undoubtedly, there are subtypes of obesity, with some more harmful than others, says Sadaf Faruqi at the University of Cambridge. You've got this massive variation that must be driven by other underlying factors. At the same time, Faruqi suggests, people who qualify as overweight or obese should generally try to lose weight. There is a clear correlation between gaining weight and increased risk of type 2 diabetes, she says, even if you don't get it right now. Furthermore, she and others say, obesity is associated with health problems well beyond metabolic abnormalities, including various cancers and wear and tear on joints. Others, particularly advocates concerned about discrimination against fat people, make a different argument. Hammering people with advice to lose weight is misguided. It's very clear that there are a lot of people in that category called obese who don't have any signs of disease and live long, healthy lives, says Lindo Bacon, a physiologist, author, and advocate for body positivity affiliated with the University of California, Davis. Bacon says a relentless focus on weight loss can come at the expense of vital medical care. For example, my father and I both went to orthopedic surgeons because we were having bad knee pain. Bacon, whose weight qualified as normal, was offered surgery after physical therapy failed, but Bacon's father was told only to lose weight. My father went to his death with knee problems. He could have benefited from stretching, strengthening, knee surgery, Bacon asserts with frustration. He didn't get that, though agreeing that obesity and ill health can travel together. Bacon insists fat itself is not a major player in disease. Social determinants of health, such as poverty, discrimination, and access to healthy food, are likely far more important, Bacon argues. And indeed, some studies have shown that people with obesity who don't have metabolic dysfunction are often better educated and wealthier than those with obesity-associated health problems. Many scientists say the evidence is clear that excess fat can pose significant health risks and that losing weight can improve health. But they agree with advocates that care for people with obesity needs to shift from simply pressuring them to shed weight, which often fails. I've worked with so many people who've gone through this cycle of losing and regaining and losing and regaining, says Cynthia Bulick, a clinical psychologist and expert in eating disorders at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and the Karolinska Institute. It's created mental torment. It affects their relationships. It affects their social life. It affects everything. Scientists like Lewes hope their work can move the focus away from body weight and toward measurable markers of metabolic health that can be more precisely and effectively targeted. Rising obesity rates have set off alarm bells for years. In 2018, 42% of U.S. adults were obese, up from about 30% 2 decades earlier, and prevalence is climbing rapidly in other countries, as well. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, defines obesity as having a body mass index, BMI, of at least 30, a calculation made by dividing weight in kilograms by the square of height in meters. Scientists have long explored links between obesity and health problems. For example, according to a 2020 study in obesity science and practice of almost 3 million UK adults tracked for an average of 11 years, people with a BMI between 30 and 35 had a risk of type 2 diabetes 5 times higher than that of people whose BMI was defined as normal. For a BMI of 40 to 45, the risk was 12 times higher. Obesity is also associated with a higher risk of heart disease, stroke, sleep apnea, certain cancers, and osteoarthritis. Differences in where and how fat is stored can affect underlying health. Excess visceral fat, deep in the abdomen, is associated with more inflammation and fat buildup in certain organs, inset, and is more harmful than subcutaneous fat, which is stored under the skin and can promote health. Yet many people with obesity have healthy cholesterol and blood glucose levels, whereas many lean people do not. You go to an obesity clinic, where people weigh 120 kilograms, 140 kilograms. Some have problems and some don't, says Antonio Vidal Puig, who studies and treats metabolic disease at Cambridge. Conversely, he notes, patients who weigh 70 or 80 kilograms might be insulin resistant and have diabetes. Trends also vary by ethnicity. People of South Asian ancestry develop diabetes without the levels of obesity in other populations, Faruqi says. We're not all the same. Clinicians and researchers favor focusing less on a person's BMI and more on cardiac and metabolic markers such as triglycerides and blood pressure. Schultz adds that waist-to-hip ratio, a component of his risk calculator, is something a doctor can measure. One way to strive for a more metabolically healthy body is with movement or exercise, which can improve response to insulin and help clear fat from the liver, even without weight loss, Vidal Puig says. It's not about fat, it's about being fit. That's what I tell people. In Klein's view, obesity treatments should aim for metabolic improvement as well as weight loss. If you lose 3% of your body weight and improve metabolic outcomes, is that worse than losing 8% and seeing no such improvement? He asks. 8% would be rewarded, whereas 3% would be, you're not sticking with the program. Klein hastens to add that weight loss may pay off in other ways, by reducing the risk of various health problems. And perhaps partly because of social pressures, many individuals simply prefer to be leaner. When someone who is fat walks into a doctor's office for a checkup, Bacon says, the first thing you should think about is, what kind of advice would I give a thinner person? The guidance won't necessarily be identical. For example, they note, a fat person may encounter stigma a thin person wouldn't when exercising at a gym. But I think that, to get away from weight bias, one of the first things people can do is try to take weight out of the picture, Bacon says, before they come to consider it. That's all for obesity and weight loss for now. See you in next video.